All right. Can everybody see this? Or at least the people who can speak?
Yes, I can see it. Very
Yeah.
nice.
Okay. All right. So, good evening and welcome everybody also from my side to the Bathtub Conference tonight. My name is Michael Palotas, and I'm responsible for software quality at eBay marketplaces in Europe. Myself, I'm based in Zurich in Switzerland, but as most of you, of course, know, eBay is all around the globe, and as well very distributed all over Europe. Also, just wanted to thank you for inviting me to hold this talk for the next roughly 45 minutes. And what I'm going to try to do is I'm going to try to give you a glimpse or a behind-the-scenes look of test automation at eBay, why we're doing it, what we've done, and also show some results, because it's great that you do things, but ideally you can show some results, what has changed to hopefully the better. Maybe just one thing to clarify. So when I talk about test automation in the next 45 minutes, I'm talking about end-to-end automation. So this is not about unit testing. This is mainly about end-to-end automation, just to make sure that we're on the same page. Good. So this is the agenda for tonight. So I'll give you a few facts about eBay to start with. I think everybody knows eBay, but I think it's also interesting to see some numbers attached to it. Then I'm going to talk about how we tested in the past. Also then why we moved into the direction of test automation. Already said what impact it had. I'll share some technical recipes, technical best practices. I'm going to talk a little bit about the limits of automation, or at least what we found were the limits for us. And then in the end, a little summary, what has changed and why do we believe that what we did was a good thing. But first, I want to show this picture. This makes me smile every time I see it, and it doesn't really have directly anything to do with my presentation. But I think regardless whether you're a developer or whether you're a tester, I think we had a thought like this at some point in time, or we've ran into somebody who has told us, hey, I think my code is good enough, and don't really need to test it, but let's just deploy it to production and then do a little bit of testing there. So I think that that's a funny thing to say or to think. I think if you are serious about software development, I think if you are working in large-scale enterprise software development type of organization, then this is probably not the right approach for developing your software. Okay, so test automation. Myself, I've been looking into I've been working in the field of test automation and exploring test automation probably for the last 5 years, approximately. And I've noticed an interesting trend. 5 years ago, the field of end-to-end automation wasn't really mature at all. So mostly, people didn't have the right tools, or there were no real good tools out there to do end-to-end automation. Then about 2-3 years ago, the tool sets have changed, and everybody was really enthusiastic about getting on board, trying out automation. And so really, yeah, positive about it. And I have to say, probably in the last 6 to 12 months, what I've noticed is kind of like this hippo that that has this skeptical face, where I go and talk about test automation, and people are very skeptical because they failed in the meantime. You know, they just didn't know how to do it in the first place, or what they did is they bought some crazy expensive tool that was promised to them to solve every single you know, for every single sorry. Um, no, I just lost the, the track. There was just a little pop up there. Yeah, so basically, you know, that people got they didn't get what they expected from automation, because it was promised to them that it would basically solve everything, every problem that they had. And so what I'm going to try to do tonight is remove that skepticism from that hippo's face. And of course, I can see you guys out there, but I'm hoping that at the end of these 45 minutes, people will say, "Hey, yes, you know, what Michael showed us, what they did at eBay was actually a good thing, and really showed some results for them." Good. So let's look into some facts at eBay, just to give you a little background. What you can, everybody knows that you can buy and sell stuff on eBay, but most people don't really know what it means in terms of technology. So I'm just going to show you a few numbers, and these are numbers from 2008, so not 100% up to date, but I think it's going to give you a pretty good image of the scale that eBay is operating on. So we have about 60 million lines of code. Depending who you ask, it can go between 50 and 70, but let's say it's 60. So that's a lot of code to maintain and to test. From a hosting perspective, there's about 10,000 plus Java application servers. I think in the meantime, it's about 15,000 and growing, of course. eBay serves about 2 billion page views every single day. There's about 25,000 searches going on every second. There's about 110 million items in more than 50,000 categories live at any time. 25 petabyte of data processed by the data warehouse every day. I actually had to look up how many zeros a petabyte has. There's 4.5 billion API calls to the public API, about 48 billion SQL executions every day, 2 terabyte of application log files every day, 2 million outbound emails, which, depending on who you ask, may not be a good thing, because some people consider that spamming them, and about 15 gigabit per second network utilization. So a very big pipe that is going in and out of those data centers. Yeah. So this just to set the background a little bit on on what type of scale eBay is operating on. All right. Now let's talk about testing. And I've been with eBay for about 7 years now, a little bit over 7 years. And I come from a development background, and then when I joined eBay, I moved over to the other side, how it was back then. I think that has also changed in today's world, but back then it was the other side. And if I look at, or if you want me to summarize how we used to test new features, I would say it can be summarized in 2 words. It was very manual, which meant that eBay had 22 sites back then, and manual regression testing was done for those 22 sites every 2 weeks, because we had a release going out every 2 weeks. From an automation perspective, it was, I wouldn't say it wasn't present, but people didn't really rely on it. So that, which had various reasons. So some people didn't rely on it because it just, simply didn't really work for them. Others didn't really know how to do it in the first place. So, okay, I mean, if you don't know how to do it in the first place, that's one thing. But if you have it and if you do it, but you don't really rely on it, that's actually, from my perspective, worse, because then you have to do the manual testing, but you also have to do the automated piece, maybe just because your manager told you that that's a cool thing to do, right? So, not exactly a good setup. And also a third thing was that the skill set of the QA engineers back then was mainly non-technical. So most people actually came from either a non-technical background, or they just never really worked in a software, like in a development role, right? So people were a little bit afraid of starting to actually write some code or write some automation scripts. Yeah. So clearly very far away from Java. And again, if I wanted to put a picture if I wanted to make it a little bit more colorful, then I think this is how I would describe it. It was very hard manual labor, and also not super interesting. I mean, if you do manual regression testing every 2 weeks, and then you have to also test your new features, not super exciting thing. Yeah. All right. So now, what I think most people know what this is, especially if you work in a bigger company. So that's an org chart, obviously, and somebody moving around boxes and drawing, right? So in my organization, this happened about 2.5 years ago, where we had a fairly large reorganization at eBay across Europe. And usually also reorganizations mean that all of a sudden you have less people and you have to do more work with those people, right? So, and that's exactly the situation that I got into. Back then I was asked to head the quality engineering efforts for Europe. But basically I knew from the very beginning that that what I was asked to do, I could not do well continuing if we continue to work like we did in the past. So what I did is I actually, I said to one of my engineers back then, he said, hey, why don't you spend some time and investigate what kind of options we have for end-to-end automation. And again, when I say end-to-end automation, that means from our perspective, you start a browser, you do something, you log in, for example, you buy something, and you do your checks if everything's okay, and then you close your browser. So that's the end-to-end context. So that guy went off, did some investigation, and in the meantime,